Every one of us craves comfort. We crave the feeling of safety, the predictability of routine, the relief of knowing exactly what to expect. It feels good. It feels easy. It feels secure. But here's the truth most people don't want to face: comfort is not your friend. Comfort is the silent enemy that convinces you to stay small, that whispers to you, "You're fine right where you are," while it slowly robs you of your potential. The danger of comfort isn't obvious at first. It doesn't knock you down overnight. It's far more dangerous than that. It seeps in quietly day by day until one morning you wake up realizing you've been standing still for years. The opportunities you once dreamed of are gone. The fire you once had inside is dim, and the person you were meant to become is buried beneath excuses and fear. Comfort doesn't just keep you where you are, it destroys who you could have been. The truth is, everything you want, growth, freedom, success, fulfillment, lives outside of that comfort zone you've been clinging to. The life you dream of requires risk. It requires courage. It requires stepping into the unknown. And if you keep choosing comfort, it will cost you more than discomfort ever could. It will cost you your future. This is why today we're going to talk about the poison of comfort, the power of discomfort, and why leaving your comfort zone isn't just a choice, it's a necessity. Comfort is a slow poison. Comfort feels harmless. It feels like safety. It feels like peace. But comfort, when left unchecked, is one of the most dangerous forces in life because it doesn't destroy you suddenly. It destroys you slowly, quietly, and without warning. It makes you believe you're in control when in reality you're standing still while the world keeps moving. And over time, that false sense of safety becomes a trap. Think about it. Every time you've chosen comfort over challenge, it gave you a moment of relief. You avoided the hard conversation. You skipped the workout. You stayed in the job that you hate, but that pays enough to survive. In that moment, you told yourself, it's fine. I'm okay here. And maybe for a while, you were. But what you didn't notice is how each one of those choices piled up, creating a habit of staying small, a pattern of playing safe, and a cycle of mediocrity that eats away at your potential. Comfort doesn't hit you like a storm. It doesn't announce its arrival. It creeps in silently like a poison drip. Little by little, you stop stretching yourself. You stop asking, what more can I do? You stop feeling that fire that once made you dream bigger. And instead, you start justifying why where you are is enough, even when deep down you know it's not. That's the poison. It doesn't just stop you from growing, it convinces you that you don't even need to grow. The most dangerous thing about comfort is that it feels good. It feels natural. Your brain is wired to seek safety, to avoid pain, to stay in familiar territory. That's why sitting on the couch feels easier than going for a run. That's why repeating the same routine feels easier than taking a risk. That's why so many people stay in unfulfilling lives. They've mistaken the absence of discomfort for happiness. But comfort isn't happiness. Comfort is numbness. It's a way of silencing the voice inside you that knows you're capable of more. History is full of examples of people who refuse to settle for comfort. Every invention, every revolution, every breakthrough came because someone chose to endure discomfort. They walked into the unknown. They challenged the limits. They put themselves at risk of failing, of being judged, of being wrong. And in return, they grew. They expanded. They discovered what was possible. None of that would have happened if they had chosen to stay where it felt safe. Comfort convinces you that time is endless, that you can chase your dreams later. But later rarely comes. Years pass, and suddenly you wake up realizing that comfort has stolen your chance. The opportunities you ignored are gone. The potential you once had is buried under excuses. You're older, but not wiser. You're alive, but not living. That is how comfort destroys, by turning your life into survival instead of fulfillment. The truth is, every great thing you want sits on the other side of discomfort. Confidence comes from facing what scares you, not avoiding it. Strength comes from pushing yourself, not sitting still. Success comes from risk, not safety. Meaning comes from challenge, not ease. And yet, so many people trade all of that away for the temporary relief of comfort. They choose the illusion of peace over the reality of progress. If you've ever felt restless in your life, if you've ever looked around and thought, I was meant for more than this, that's your wake-up call. That's your inner self warning you that you've been sitting in comfort for too long. Because comfort doesn't just destroy your future. It destroys your spirit. It kills your curiosity. It takes the spark in your eyes and turns it into a dull routine. And worst of all, it convinces you that this is all there is. Imagine your life as a muscle. If you keep challenging it, it grows stronger. If you stop using it, it weakens. Comfort is the same. The longer you stay in it, the weaker your potential becomes. And the day you finally decide to step out, you realize how much you've lost, how heavy the weight of complacency has become. That's why it's so dangerous. It robs you silently, without you noticing, until one day you wake up with regret. The people who achieve greatness are not the ones who avoid comfort once or twice. They are the ones who build the habit of rejecting it daily. They are the ones who train themselves to see comfort as a warning sign, not a safe place. They recognize that when life feels too easy, it's a sign they've stopped growing. They understand that the very thing most people chase, ease, safety, predictability, is the very thing that suffocates potential. Comfort is not your friend. It disguises itself as rest, but secretly breeds weakness. It disguises itself as safety, but secretly builds fear. It disguises itself as happiness, but secretly creates regret. And unless you learn to recognize it for what it is, you'll keep sipping from its poison, day by day, until one day you realize it has consumed you completely. Growth only exists in discomfort. Growth is never found in the places where you feel safe. It doesn't happen when everything is predictable, when your routine is smooth, or when you're surrounded only by certainty. Growth is born in the very moments that make you uncomfortable, the moments that stretch you beyond what you thought you were capable of. Discomfort is not something to avoid. It is the birthplace of strength, resilience, and transformation. Think back to any achievement in your life that you're proud of. Maybe it was learning a skill, finishing a degree, starting a business, or even getting through a difficult period in your life. Did any of those moments come without discomfort? Did you grow in those times because things were easy? Or was it because you stepped into an unfamiliar territory, faced uncertainty, and pushed yourself past your limits? Growth demands friction. Without pressure, there is no progress. Take the simple example of physical training. Muscles don't grow when you lift what's easy. They grow when you push past what feels comfortable. When you add weight that challenges you, when you stretch your capacity, the discomfort you feel in those moments is your body's way of signaling that change is happening. It's painful, yes, but that pain is proof of growth. Life works the same way. If you want to grow mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, you must go through the discomfort of challenge, failure, and uncertainty. The reason most people remain stuck is not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they avoid discomfort. They want the results without the struggle. They want the rewards without the risks. They want the success story without the messy, painful chapters in between. But growth doesn't work like that. It asks you to step into the unknown. It demands that you fail, adapt, and rise again. Without that, you remain the same person, repeating the same cycles, living the same year over and over. Discomfort is the test that separates those who only dream from those who achieve. The dreamers imagine what's possible, but stay in the comfort of someday. The achievers embrace the discomfort of today. They are willing to take risks, face rejection, and stumble forward because they understand that every challenge is shaping them into the person capable of carrying their vision. They don't see discomfort as punishment. They see it as preparation. Even fear, which so many try to escape, is a signpost pointing toward growth. Fear lives in the places you have not yet mastered. It highlights the unknown, the uncertain, the areas where growth is waiting. Instead of treating fear as a wall, treat it as a doorway. When you walk toward what you fear, you expand your capacity. The more you face discomfort, the more resilient you become. What once terrified you eventually becomes normal. That's the essence of growth. What was once outside of your comfort zone eventually becomes part of it, and then you push further again. The problem is that most people confuse comfort with happiness. They believe that if life feels easy, they must be doing well. But happiness without growth is hollow. It doesn't last. True fulfillment doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from overcoming it. The pride you feel after facing something difficult, the strength you build after enduring something hard, the confidence you gain after taking a risk, that is the kind of fulfillment that comfort can never give you. Discomfort also reveals who you really are. When everything is going smoothly, it's easy to act confident, disciplined, and strong. But when you're stretched, when things are uncertain, When you're faced with setbacks, that's when your true character emerges. Growth requires you to face those parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. It requires you to acknowledge your weaknesses, your fears, your doubts. And in doing so, it gives you the opportunity to rise above them. Look at the people you admire most. They didn't become who they are by staying comfortable. They became who they are because they walked through discomfort over and over again. They failed more than most people ever try. They endured more rejection than most people could handle. They put themselves in situations where success was not guaranteed. And that's exactly why they grew, why they became strong, why they inspire others. The irony is that the more you embrace discomfort, the less it controls you. At first, it feels unbearable, but with every step you take, your tolerance grows. You become someone who doesn't break at the first sign of struggle. You become someone who doesn't crumble under pressure. You become someone who doesn't run from fear, but walks straight into it. And that strength becomes your foundation for everything else you want in life. Growth only exists in discomfort because comfort offers nothing new. It only repeats what you already know, what you've already done, who you already are. Discomfort, on the other hand, introduces you to new possibilities. It challenges your beliefs, expands your perspective, and forces you to become more than you were yesterday. It demands that you stretch, and in that stretching, you discover capacities you never knew you had. Fear is a compass, not an obstacle. Fear has an unusual reputation. Most people treat it like an enemy, something to run away from, something to silence, something to avoid at all costs. But fear, when understood correctly, is one of the most powerful tools you have. It's not a wall blocking your path. It's a compass pointing you toward the exact direction you need to go. The things you fear the most are often the things that hold the greatest potential for your growth, your success, and your fulfillment. Think about it. Why do you fear public speaking? Because deep down, you know it would give you influence, confidence, and presence if you mastered it. Why do you fear starting that business or chasing that dream? Because you know it has the power to change your life, but it also comes with risk. Why do you fear difficult conversations? Because they carry the possibility of rejection, but also the possibility of truth and transformation. Fear doesn't appear randomly. It shows up at the edges of your comfort zone, right where growth lives. Fear is a signal. It's your body's way of saying, pay attention. There's something important here. Too many people mistake that signal as a stop sign. They feel fear and retreat. They assume that if they're afraid, it must mean something is wrong, that they're not ready, that it's too risky. But fear is rarely a warning to stop. More often, it's an invitation to move forward. It's a sign that you're standing in front of a door that leads to a version of yourself you haven't met yet. Imagine your life as a map. The areas you know, the places where you're comfortable are marked clearly. But at the edges where the map is blank, that's where fear lives. Fear is the compass pointing you to those blank spaces. It says, this is where your next level is. This is where you'll grow. This is where you'll discover something new. If you ignore it, you stay in the same familiar territory forever. If you follow it, you expand your world. The people who achieve extraordinary things are not fearless. That's a myth. They are just as afraid as everyone else. The difference is they treat fear differently. They recognize it as part of the process. They use it as a guide instead of a barrier. When they feel fear, they don't say, this is impossible. They say, this matters. This is worth pursuing. They know that the presence of fear often means they're on the right track. Fear also has a way of sharpening your senses. When you're afraid, you're more alert, more focused, more alive. Think about the times you've been afraid but acted anyway. Your heart raced, your mind sharpened, and you felt present in a way you don't feel when you're comfortable. That's the gift of fear. It forces you into the moment. It strips away distractions. It demands your full attention. And in that heightened state, you often perform at levels you didn't know you were capable of. But here's the danger: if you constantly avoid fear, it grows stronger. The things you avoid become bigger in your mind. The conversation you avoid becomes scarier the longer you wait. The opportunity you ignore becomes heavier with doubt the more you delay. Avoidance feeds fear. Action shrinks it. The moment you face what scares you, the fear loses its power. The monster you imagine turns out to be smaller than you thought. And with every fear you face, you gain more confidence to face the next one. Fear is also deeply personal. What terrifies one person might excite another. That's because fear reveals what matters to you. If you're afraid of failure, it means success matters to you. If you're afraid of rejection, it means connection matters to you. If you're afraid of speaking up, it means your voice matters to you. The very thing you fear often points directly to what you value most. Ignoring it is not just avoiding growth. It's avoiding what's most meaningful in your life. The greatest regrets people carry are not from the risks they took, but from the risks they avoided. They look back and realize that the fears that stopped them weren't walls at all, just illusions. They realize that their lives could have been different if they had seen fear not as a barrier, but as a signpost. They realized too late that fear was never the problem. Their relationship with fear was. If you want to live a life of meaning, you must reframe fear. Instead of asking, how do I get rid of fear? Ask, what is my fear trying to tell me? Instead of saying, I'm afraid, so I shouldn't do this. Say, I'm afraid, so this must matter. Let fear guide you toward the places you've been avoiding, the dreams you've been postponing, the challenges you've been running from. Use it as a compass, because it will never point you backward. It will always point you forward. Fear will never disappear completely. No matter how much you grow, there will always be new fears waiting at the next level. But that's the beauty of it. Each new fear means there's another horizon to reach, another challenge to conquer, another version of yourself to discover. Fear is not a curse, it's a gift. It shows you the path to growth if only you're willing to follow it. Stagnation destroys potential. One of the greatest tragedies in life is not failure, it's stagnation. Failure at least means you tried. It means you stepped outside your comfort zone, took a risk, and tested your limits. Stagnation, on the other hand, is silent. It disguises itself as stability. It looks like security. It feels like routine. But underneath, it's a slow erosion of your potential. When you stagnate, you don't just stop growing, you start decaying. You lose momentum, and over time, you lose yourself. Think about water. Flowing water is clear, alive, and full of energy. Stagnant water, left untouched, becomes toxic. It breeds disease, it stinks, and it loses its ability to sustain life. Human potential works the same way. When you move, when you challenge yourself, when you evolve, you remain alive. But when you stay stuck in the same patterns, doing the same things, avoiding discomfort, you start to deteriorate. Your skills fade. Your passion weakens. Your confidence shrinks. Stagnation doesn't keep you where you are. It pulls you backward. The cruel part is that stagnation rarely feels urgent. It creeps in slowly. You go to the same job every day, do the same tasks, repeat the same conversations. You tell yourself it's fine, that you're secure, that things are stable. But weeks turn into months and months into years, and before you realize it, you've spent a decade standing still. The world has moved on, opportunities have passed, and you're left with the weight of regret. Not because you failed, but because you never truly lived. Every person is born with potential. It's not limited to a chosen few. You have ideas inside you, talents inside you, strengths you haven't even discovered yet. But potential is not permanent. It's not something you can store away for later. If you don't use it, you lose it. The skills you don't practice fade. The ideas you don't act on disappear. The confidence you don't build turns into doubt. That's what stagnation does. It robs you silently, one missed opportunity at a time. Look at nature. Every living thing is either growing or dying. Trees don't stop growing just because they're comfortable. They reach higher, spread wider, and adapt to their environment. The moment they stop, decay begins. Human beings are no different. If you're not growing, you're declining. There is no in between. Stagnation is not neutral. It's destructive. The irony is that many people choose stagnation because they fear failure. They think staying where they are keeps them safe. But in reality, it's the riskiest choice of all. Comfort feels secure in the moment, but it guarantees decline over time. The job you hold on to because it feels safe eventually leaves you behind as industries evolve. The skills you refuse to upgrade become irrelevant. The relationships you stop nurturing fade. Stagnation gives you the illusion of safety while quietly erasing your future. Greatness is never built in stillness, it's built in motion. Progress requires energy, effort, and risk. It requires you to be uncomfortable, to try new things, to fail and learn and try again. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who refuse to sit still. They're the ones who keep moving, even when it's hard, even when it's uncertain, even when it's uncomfortable. They understand that stagnation is the enemy of potential, and they fight it every day. Stagnation also kills passion. When you're not growing, life starts to feel dull. You wake up each day with no excitement, no energy, no sense of purpose. That spark you once had fades into monotony, and soon you stop believing in yourself. You start convincing yourself that maybe you were never meant for more, that maybe your dreams were too big, that maybe this is all life has to offer. But that's not true. It's not that your potential disappeared, it's that stagnation buried it under years of inaction. The saddest thing is that stagnation doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. When you stay small, when you refuse to grow, you limit the value you can bring to others, your family, your friends, your community. They all miss out on the best version of you. Your untapped potential could have inspired someone, helped someone, created opportunities for someone. But stagnation silences your impact. It keeps your contribution locked away, never to be shared. Escaping stagnation doesn't require massive leaps. It begins with small, consistent steps forward, trying something new, learning a skill, asking a question, taking a risk. Every little act of growth adds momentum, and momentum is the antidote to stagnation. Once you're moving, even slowly, you create energy. You reignite your passion. You remind yourself that you're capable of more. The truth is, life will never reward you for staying the same. The world belongs to those who adapt, who evolve, who refuse to let comfort chain them down. Stagnation may feel safe, but it slowly destroys everything you are capable of becoming. And the longer you stay stuck, the harder it becomes to break free. That's why the best time to fight stagnation is now. The reward is freedom. When you leave your comfort zone, you don't just gain success, skills, or recognition. You gain freedom. Freedom is the ultimate reward because it is the ability to live life on your own terms, unshackled by fear, unchained by limitations, and unburdened by regret. Most people think freedom comes from security, staying in a safe job, living in familiar routines, avoiding risk. But that's not freedom. That's dependence disguised as safety. Real freedom is found only when you dare to step into discomfort, challenge yourself, and grow into someone who no longer needs the crutch of comfort to feel alive. Comfort cages you. It locks you into a predictable pattern and convinces you that leaving is dangerous. But the irony is that the cage itself is the danger, because inside it you live small, you silence your potential, you surrender your choices. You trade the possibility of greatness for the illusion of safety. And over time, that illusion fades, leaving you trapped in a life that feels more like survival than living. The only way to break free is to step out of the cage, to endure the uncertainty of the unknown, to risk discomfort in exchange for expansion. Freedom begins when you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your fears. Every time you face something that scares you, whether it's speaking up, taking a leap, or starting something new, you reclaim a piece of freedom. You remind yourself that fear does not control you. You discover that you can walk into the unknown and survive. And each time you do it, you grow less dependent on comfort. You start to realize that true safety doesn't come from avoiding risk. It comes from building the confidence that you can handle whatever happens. Consider the difference between someone who clings to comfort and someone who embraces discomfort. The person who clings to comfort may feel safe in the moment, but their choices are limited. They can't take opportunities that require risk. They can't express themselves fully for fear of judgment. They can't change direction because the uncertainty feels too heavy. Their life is not their own. It is dictated by the boundaries of what feels familiar. The person who embraces discomfort, on the other hand, is free. They've faced fear, stumbled, and survived. They've learned that failure is not fatal and that rejection is not the end. They can move, adapt, and choose boldly because their sense of security comes from within, not from circumstances. Freedom also means the freedom to dream bigger. When you're stuck in your comfort zone, your dreams shrink to fit the size of your cage. You tell yourself you can't, that it's not realistic, that it's too risky. But when you push yourself beyond comfort, your perspective changes. You start to see possibilities where before you only saw limitations. You realize that you're capable of more than you imagined. And suddenly, the dreams that once felt impossible begin to feel within reach. That shift in mindset is freedom. The freedom to imagine, to pursue, to create a life that excites you instead of one that numbs you. Another form of freedom is emotional. Comfort keeps you tied to fear, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of judgment. When you step beyond it, you free yourself from those chains. You stop living for the approval of others. You stop letting fear dictate your choices. You start making decisions based on what you truly want, not what feels safe or socially acceptable. That emotional liberation is priceless. It allows you to live authentically, to show up fully, to be unapologetically yourself. And perhaps the most powerful freedom of all is freedom from regret. People who live in their comfort zones spend their later years haunted by, what if? What if I had tried? What if I had spoken up? What if I had pursued my dream? That regret is a prison far worse than any temporary discomfort. But when you live courageously, when you embrace growth through discomfort, you free yourself from that haunting question. Even if you fail knowing you tried. You fail knowing you lived. You fail without regret. That is freedom. The journey out of your comfort zone will test you. It will stretch you. It will scare you. But every step you take away from comfort is a step toward freedom. Freedom to create. Freedom to choose. Freedom to live a life that is not dictated by fear, but by purpose. Freedom that can't be given by anyone else. It can only be claimed by you, through courage, through discomfort, through growth. The comfort zone is seductive. It tells you that you're safe, that you're secure, that you don't need to push any further. But the truth is, the comfort zone is not safety. It's a trap. It steals your hunger, it numbs your ambition, and it suffocates the greatness inside of you. Comfort is not protecting you. It's destroying you slowly, quietly, without you even noticing. Every great story of transformation begins the same way, with someone who refused to settle for comfort. They were scared, they were uncertain, they were unsure of what would happen next. But they stepped forward anyway. And in that moment, they discovered that growth only happens in discomfort, that fear is not a barrier, but a compass, that stagnation is death, and that the ultimate reward for courage is freedom. Your potential is waiting for you, not in the life you're living now, not in the routine that feels easy, not in the familiar walls you've built around yourself. It's waiting just beyond the edge of comfort. The question is not whether it's possible for you. The question is whether you're willing to leave the false safety of comfort behind and step into the discomfort that will shape you, stretch you, and free you. Because the choice is simple: leave your comfort zone or be destroyed by it.